Welcome to PTG TV. This is your host, Antonio Hicks, aka Escaping the Matrix, with my co-host, Ms. Tamika Day, welcoming her back. In today's episode, we welcome on our special guest, Ms. Kiddada Grey, in a discussion about when you think you know. A huge issue we are seeing more recently these days is a problem with critical thinking and basic problem-solving skills. Now, this is just my opinion on it, and I don't have any data to back it up. But we know it to be an issue when it comes to certain topics that are coming up, say the Israeli-Pakistani conflict that's taking place, or even to Black Lives Matter or say LBGTQ plus rights. Individuals tend to speak off the cuff and or say they aren't informed enough to make a statement on or a decision rather than actually use a computer present in their hand or purse, #smartphone. This could be because of status quo bias, anchoring bias, and or stress due to so much data present, it causes a mental overload. We welcome Kiddada on, someone who is a political consultant and strategist, PhD student in international conflict management, and spent over 10 years in the IT industry, to dive more deeply into this topic and see if we can put a finger onto the why without going through 4 years of school, getting a certification, and or putting people on the couch, because ain't nobody got time for that. Welcome on, Kiddada.
Good morning.
You know we don't have time for that.
You said 4 years of school? I can't.
4 years of school. No, we ain't got time for that.
Oh, that means now I'm starting to calculate how many years of school I've had. It's way more than 4 years.
Everybody, and conflict resolution don't even start in school. It's supposed to start at home. So this is the conversation that we was having before the show actually started, and why it was going on a long tangent. It's supposed to start at home with your parents. Your parents are supposed to give you those life skills. And if you don't have parents at home, your grandparents or just your network of people that's around you that's raising you, they're supposed to prepare you for life and teach you about critical resolution and having basic problem solving skills. Now, some of us, we don't pay attention. We still ignorant too when we get out of school and think we know everything until life punches us into the face and reality comes into place. And then we remember, oh, we were told about that when we were growing up. So what are some of the issues that you all are seeing today? Like I said, about the whole Israeli-Pakistan conflict. And I know you and I talked about that. And we're not going to talk about it today. We're not even going to address it. My whole thing is, and my thing continues to be, especially working in IT, and Tamika has an IT background as well too, is that we don't utilize the technology we have to be informed about particular topics, subjects, fields we want to work into, or situations that just may come up. When we can easily just do a Google search or do a Siri. Don't mess with Katana, because Katana don't know what the hell she's doing. Or we can talk to Alexa. All those three entities alone can answer any question that you may ask them. And I'm trying to understand why we don't even utilize those things so we can make more informed decisions. And as opposed to saying we can't speak on something because we don't have knowledge in it, we can actually speak to what data is already present and what people have lived through.
I was thinking about this morning because there's a data overload, and I know that I can say I'm highly overeducated, right? Because I'm working on my 5th degree. And so I love school. I love data. I love knowledge. I love to read. And I know that reading used to be fundamental, and now reading is literally within sound bites. I would remember being shocked a few years ago when I realized that on most articles now, it tells us it's a 3-minute read. It's a 2-minute read. It's a 4-minute read, or my favorite, long reads. And I was like, I thought long reads were books, but I don't know. That's a whole other mood, right? So I say all that to say that, doing a Google search brings up millions of documents. How do you know what's right and how do you know what's wrong? In the world of academia teaches you about research, right? Like I start to tell people, if you're gonna quote something, I need to know your source. What is the source? What is deemed a fact? And we know under the former presidential administration, facts are no longer real. So I don't know what feelings are real or lies are real. Actually, lies are real. And that's a challenge for people, because if you don't understand what is a really good source of information, incredible sources of information, then you can read a whole lot of stuff. I mean, that's how you got people jumped into QAnon. You've got
Mm-hmm.
literally two sides going, I mean, how do you get caught up in QAnon? You get caught up in these crazy ideologies because you are basing it on your feelings. It's your
Mm-hmm.
feelings that are at work. It's not even your lack of knowledge. It has really spoken to your fear. So now I'm going to attach myself to it. It's different. I'll give a good example. I was trying to mind my business the other day, landed up next to Planned Parenthood, and they were protesting there. And as I was parked and trying to make phone calls, one of the little crazy women came over to me with a little pamphlet. I'm a big fan of Planned Parenthood. Be mad if you want to, but so so she started coming at me. I mean, literally, she was like, "Will you take this pamphlet?" Fine. I'm curious. I'm gonna read it because I want to know your level of crazy. And the first line was, "If you're pregnant, you can kill a baby with microwave waves." Right? Like the and people believe this. And
that was on a flyer.
Yes, it's in their little booklet. And I mean, it really took me back to when microwaves came out, like the first microwaves came out and everybody was and they were like, don't stand in front of the microwave because you'll get those it'll come and kill you and they call it brain cancer and all these kind of things. And that was 20, 30 years ago, maybe longer than that, we're back in the same space because people don't want to read. We are giving people so much information that people don't want to take the time to discover for themselves. And even if you are discovering, you don't have that critical bar in your head that's going, or the flag that goes, wait a minute, that doesn't sound right. That doesn't sound right. Because I know we all had science. I remember earth science. I remember biology. I remember chemistry. K through 12. I know we had versions of that. And when we are now in our adulthood, whether you go to college or not, and we have to argue about how a vaccine works or how a virus works, like it hasn't changed. The cold virus, the flu virus, it hasn't changed, just another name. We are choosing. I really think a lot of it is a choice not to know because it takes too much work. It takes too much time. And we literally live in minutes and seconds. Because I was really dumbfounded when I can't remember what article I finally kind of caught that on the side of it, the top right side, it said it's a 3-minute read. And we only have 3 minutes to read something.
Right.
That's our capacity, but that's where we're at. And I see it in Instagram, and I'm not a fan of Instagram because we're just picture driven.
Right.
Like we won't even go to a museum, but we'll swipe on our phone to see something ridiculous like that, right? And I mean, I'm not a fan of Instagram, but they're gonna force me to get on Instagram. But it's just kind of like, this is how metered and short-lived we are, and you can't have great thinking. We need a whole other kind of American renaissance of great thinkers in the United States, and we're missing that opportunity in these short sound bites.
Right.
Let's think about YouTube. That 4-second ad on YouTube is like you want to cut your wrist.
Yeah.
Meaning you're sitting there and you're like, okay, my kids are like, it's an ad. How can I get this over with? So as you're talking about it, and as we are kind of being almost pushed into this realm, but because I'm in education, you're in education spaces, trying to get people to just think about simple things like how to acquire a transcript. So even though you mentioned Google and we think that it's right at your fingertips, people are not utilizing it to the way that it should be utilized. Those are the phone calls that I get. How do I find my transcript? Do you know what college did you attend? Did you go there for 2 to 3 years? How long was you there? I'm not sure. What do you mean you're not sure? That was a part of your life. Did you attend there? Well, I took a class. I withdrew. I mean, some of the things that you get all the time. So when you talk about critical thinking skills, I'm also a licensed cosmetologist. There's no option. You cannot do that from a microwave society. You have to put your hands on it. You have to have critical thinking skills. So I think it goes back to taking vocational out of the schools, career
Mm-hmm.
technical education, making these things optional. When we grew up, a lot of these things were not optional. So now we're just giving people so much time and so much energy to escape. I was telling Antonio on the way here when we was talking about what we was going to talk about. I want my kids to be able to change a light bulb in a lamp.
Mm-hmm.
Like we have just gotten to just simplify things to
Yep,
where
yep.
now they feel like probably we should hire somebody, call someone in who's going to change the light bulb. You are. So it sounds simple and it sounds like we are just ignoring bigger problems, but you have some people who are just, Antonio was talking about, like just getting the oil change. We just got to go back to some of the simple basics, but then you have Miss Gray who's like, no, but I want you to write a thesis and a paper. No, we just need people to do some of these little tangible things that's going to change your life on day to day
And let's talk about,
operations. And we,
and let's talk about the fact that you don't have handyman money. How about that? Like
Right.
you don't have you
Right.
making $10, 10 to 15. I'll even give you $10 to $20 an hour. You really don't. Hiring someone else to outsource a skill is a luxury. That's
Mm-hmm.
not something that you can do. Like you just don't. I mean, and I know everyone just go look at YouTube. And I will confess, I have no idea how to do an oil change. Okay, I just don't.
But a
And that's
YouTube video exists.
they exist, right? They do. But I also feel like that's what your man is for. But that's a whole other conversation.
Ooh. Yeah, Tamika just said that too before we got on the show. She did say that.
Everybody has a skill. Stay in your lane, stay in your lane, stay in your lane. Right? That's all. But it's true. We just don't. And I know, and here's the other thing that really trips me out is how much we want to push back off onto the school system. Well, the
Right.
teachers teaching them, but that's not part of it. Mom and dad, what are you doing? And I
Right.
do believe the trope of, well, mom and dad's working 60, 70, 80 hours, so they don't have time. You brought them
Nope.
into the world, you have to continue to raise them. You have to
Mm-hmm.
let them know. If you're gonna leave them at home, they know at least need to survive on their own.
Mm-hmm.
And that's critical.
And that's why one thing I did say, we talking about children, talking about my own, is like my children live 3-4 states away from me. They're all the way up in Michigan. But one thing we did when they was growing up, we talked every morning before they got on the school bus. Literally until they walked on the school bus, we talked about what the agenda was for today, what affirmations they had to speak over themselves, how we were going to work through the day. If we had any trouble, we had to work through before they got on the school bus, on the phone. And then when they got off, we addressed how did your day go? What topics did you not understand that we can go over remotely? Anything you need help with? Do we need to schedule some time for a tutor or whatever? So those things that you can do, even if you got to work, that you can do for your kids, working a regular job. Another thing that makes me mad too is like you said about resources. It's like I don't understand why it's so easy for people to go to somebody and get information from a person that doesn't work in the field. When a person that actually works in that field, as a specialist in it, they don't believe him or her. Like when you talking about viruses, they talking about, oh, COVID came from 5G. So I'm having to fight this argument because I work in 5G. I work in emerging technology. I work in research and development. And I'm like, no, that's not how viruses work. Well, it's the radiation. Have you ever seen a cell tower up close in person? Do you understand how microwave radiation even really works? Do you understand how it's transmitted, how it's broadcast, how it's affected your body? I'm like, you're soaked in radiation throughout your house already. From your microwave through your wireless devices inside of your house. I said, you're already getting drowned in radiation. So how all of a sudden now 5G, and 5G is not even real. 5G is so-called on the scene. It's called COVID. But you believe these other folks that don't even work in their field or have any specialty into it, or are even biologists, and you believe somebody else as opposed to the actual specialist.
So I don't know if it's just critical thinking skills or we've just gotten so lazy or just
it's lazy.
Lazy. Okay.
Yeah, that's the quickest way to end it. That's the quickest way to end the show. It's like people are just lazy.
No,
yeah.
I think that it's everything has been. I'm trying to think of who I heard this on NPR, and let me just pause and say, I know NPR is very divisive for people, which I don't understand, because I grew up on NPR.
I like NPR.
I love NPR.
Because you all are nerds. Y'all are nerds.
But here's the thing.
I'm gonna fall in that group. We are nerds. So
You're
you love anything to where you're gonna learn and explore, and you pick up different things from different resources and people, and you're trying to gather that information so that you could make an informed decision.
But
That's
NPR, okay, so here's my argument about NPR. So, because I used to teach a lot of classes to parents, like Education 101, right? And I would say to parents, I love a good song too. I'm an East Coast hip hop girl. I love it. However, that's not what's on in my car, especially when my children are on. And especially on Saturday mornings, if you're driving your children to football or whatever, because NPR actually does like quizzes and stuff. And so that's just depositing information into children, right? They do storytelling. And I would tell parents, if you want to enrich your children's understanding of the world or get this idea of creativity, turn off the TV and listen to NPR because of the storytelling, because we're not storytellers anymore. And to slow down and listen, because it gives you a framework. Even if you don't know the language, you can actually, they paint pictures with words, things that we don't do anymore. Right. So so everybody listen to NPR, especially on the weekends. Shout out to NPR. I don't work for NPR, but
now you're gonna have me listening to it on satellite radio. Now I gotta go find NPR.
But even still, you got, and I think that's what kind of the podcast stemmed from too.
Yes.
Because you can do those same things. Like I listen to a lot of science podcasts and technology podcasts. I listen to story. I love horror stories. So that's a big one of my things. So I love listening to horror stories. And I even have my kids listening to it. Well, I think they listen to it, but I know when it was down here, I had them listening to it to the point I had to cut some of that stuff off. Like I was having them listening to all news, politics, and stuff, and horror stories. I was like, okay, let's just go back to some trap music for a little bit, or some classical music, so we can kind of just balance it out. But yeah, it's like even if you don't want to read, because you're not talking about it, so even if you don't want to read. If y'all don't know, you can highlight the text in the field and right click it and select the computer to read it for you.
Oh.
Yes. So they've had software out for a long time that does text read. If you don't want to read it, the computer will read it for you.
Go ahead and do that. Oh.
I want you to learn how to spell. I want you to put a word together. I want you to know how subject verb agreement goes. My daughter wrote her daddy a letter and she put please and she put PLZS, and I could have you would have thought she had just broke something. I was like, no.
Oh, okay. I had to think about that for a minute. I was confused. She's texting. Texting language is now becoming
right. And I made her rewrite it. And so just paying attention and being more, Tony, I'm big about intention. So, as those parents who are listening to our show and you're thinking about ways to engage your kids, I know technology is there. I know we talk a lot about gaming and putting your kids in front of the game, but I am old school. I'm from the South. I believe in things that are tangible for your kids to touch. So I decided to enroll my soon-to-be middle schooler. Yes, Tony, I have a middle schooler. Went to the 6th grade into 4-H. Do y'all remember 4-H when we grew up?
Yep. My daughter.
And I think they have some amazing things for the summer. It's affordable. They have a day to serve. And I'm like, yes, she's definitely doing that. Well, she's going to learn about civic engagement. You can't get that by online and technology. Some of the things, so a day to serve. They have gardening, crafts, and then there's a horse camp. So we just have to be more intentional, I think, as parents, and ask those questions and seek and look for those things. So as you are a mom, you are a businesswoman, you do a lot of things, you wear a lot of hats. How do you keep the balance? Talk to people about balancing their critical thinking and not overthinking a lot of the different things that we have going on. How do you balance it?
It is so I've got 3 children, and like I said, the last 2, or actually one is really home with me because the other one's in college. And he's the baby, and because he's the baby, mom has been a little bit more lax, right? Because he's my baby. And so, I'm a Caribbean woman, and I always say, like, my children receive Caribbean light, in terms of, the structure of the day, what you're going to do, what you're not going to do, that kind of thing. And my son is gifted. And as I've watched him over the years, it's been a struggle to keep him motivated because school is boring for him. Like, he's got a photographic memory. There's no real challenge. And so next year he's going to be a junior. And I've always kept my kids in summer camp. Black-owned summer camps, because Black-owned summer camps rock a whole lot differently. And there's reading as a part of the day. We just not gonna play all day. No, and I think that's essential. Like, I'm really that type of person. I remember I put my kids into, it's like the equivalent of Kumon, but I can't remember the original version of it. And I would get my kids tested to see what they learned and what their gaps were. So I was the one at Costco or Sam's buying all the workbooks over the summer because and I remember my oldest, who's now 30, one summer, he just, I don't know what happened, but it was just, oh, you want to fail? You don't want to do the work? Fine. So I did the test, and everything that he missed, I went and got the equivalent workbook for him, whether it was K to 6, starting to, you missed the fundamental things, especially when it comes to English and communication and, reading and writing. And he literally had to go through those workbooks. And I tell parents that all the time, because we have to invest in their education. And I know that we are in the space of, we want it quick. Even our small businesses reflect, how am I going to say this? Reflect, like, I'm going to say simple things, right? Like, if I love my sister girls, but I'm like, if I see one more eyelash hair weave business, I'm just like, I don't know what we're doing with this, because that's only going to last for so long. And so my kids have always been put into academics comes first here. It always has come first. And between Mike's husband and I, we're 7 degrees up. There's no reason why you shouldn't know. There's no reason why you can't ask a question. I still, my daughter's at Barry, and she'll just call me to talk, because she's just so like, wait a minute, Mom, like, I learned about this today. And I mean, she wants to be a veterinarian. I get phone calls about cows, insemination of cows, all kinds of stuff. And now she's taking a cultural anthropology class, and it's called One Health, and the relationship between animals and people. And I don't know, but guess what? I love the conversation, because I can see her light bulb has gone off. And we are missing the opportunity with our children to give them experiences. Like, I stopped a long time ago giving gifts. Like, I'm not spending money on stuff you're going to throw away or it's going to be done with in a couple months. Like, I am the queen of, let me open up the state, because we live in Georgia, right? So I'm good for, and I love to find little small towns, find out what are the little key things that are there. I take mine to wildlife safari. We're going here. We're going to this museum, because I want them to see. You may not like it in the moment, but you might, at some point in time, it might come back. Right. And we spend more time with our babies, with ourselves as adults, cultivating who we are so we can grow. And even Antonio, you follow me on Facebook. Every once in a while I get in trouble, but I don't work in this space 100%, because this is not politics for me. Is something that's historical, is cyclical, it repeats itself. So me standing today, I know it already happened. Right. Okay. And I don't spend all my time in political spaces, because I'm like, there's more to life than that. And so when I feel quiet or I'm missing from a meeting, it's literally because Kiddada's on the belt line, or Kiddada's at some new restaurant, or Kiddada's in a, because that's life to me. Or I'm like, I'm done, I'm going to go travel somewhere. I'm going to go walk around this little small town. And so I think that we need to get back to the idea of introductions of new things in our spaces, and not even taking the word from others. Because I love the fact that Black folk are now traveling. Right. I love it. Oh God, yes. I love it. However, when I see Black folk traveling, they travel with their privilege, and they don't realize
to tourist spots.
Yeah, right. The terms like and like I said, I'm a Caribbean girl, so I don't need you coming to my country and staying in 4 places and not understanding that there's an entire island, or what the structure of being a Caribbean, what being Caribbean looks like. We
Mm-hmm.
have in my country we have um, homes that are built by the government for you. Right. And I remember I heard on a video, this woman was like, oh my gosh, look, they live in poverty and they're living. Now, these are concrete homes that are not going to blow away.
Mm-hmm.
They're sitting on cliffs that overlook the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
People are paying $2-3 million for it. And this woman thought, an African American female, she thought it was poverty. And I was like, girl, no, do you understand? Like, if I could come home, build me that real easily. And so we're doing the touristy thing without understanding that there's a whole lot of life for us. And I have my shortfalls. If you ask me about finances, I'm not good. I can outsource that, right? I can outsource that. But I'm always willing to learn. I'm going to be the person that I don't turn it over without you giving me a full explanation about what it is that you're doing and what that looks like. And I just hope for my people that I love so much that we start stretching ourselves again. Because I really do feel like we need a renaissance moment. We are stuck. Like, and it's not the Harlem Renaissance. I mean, and Tamika, I sent you a Facebook request because I always try to, I've lived in the South for 16 years now, and I'm getting better of my new experiences is trying to eat Southern foods.
Ooh, oh God. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, look at her post. Go ahead, Kiddada.
It blows my mind. I didn't even post today because y'all got on my nerves. So, but I mean, when I say, oh, I tried a Southern food today, how many Black folks like, that's not Southern? And I'm like, wait a minute, like Atlanta's not the only Southern city. There's people all over. And yesterday it was, what did I say? I tried
buttermilk pie.
I don't even know what that is.
It's gross.
It's just, and people, I mean, people are like, that's not real. What was the other thing that I ate? Tomato pie.
Tomato pie.
Like, oh, I ate tomato pie. And people are like, what? That's not, I mean, I had people literally going, no, that's from New Jersey. That's from this. And I'm like, it's not a pizza, people. It literally a pie.
Right.
And then Christian, I don't know, Antonio, if you saw, Christian said, have you ever tried a beet pie?
Yeah, beet pie, yeah.
I was like, whoa, wait a minute now.
It's sweet.
I'm sure it's sweet. It makes sense. You roast a beet, it gets sweet. You put it in a pie, and be sweet. So, I mean, we're so stuck in our own area that I'm like, you're not the only Black person. You haven't had the only Black experience. And when I tell people, like, yes, I've lived here a long time. I mean, I'm Caribbean first, though. My choice of food is always going to be Caribbean food. So I remember when people were just like, wait a minute, you eat goat meat? Like, what is that all about? People thought that was strange. Pretty good. It's good. That's what I grew up really on. Good. Right? Had a whole goat in the backyard. So, in Detroit, Michigan. So when I lived in Detroit. So, and I'm just like, why do Black folk, and I mean, I don't want to turn this into the Black people thing, but I mean, like, I've got Black Southerners who don't realize there's people from Mississippi, from Texas, from whatever, whether you're from Atlanta or, St. Simon's Island, that have a total different experience. And we get so stuck in our lanes that we can't see past anything else. But I'm going to keep the Southern.
Because we don't go outside of our bubble, because Tamika and I come from Macon, Georgia.
Okay.
So we lived in Macon before we came up here to up north, before I got to Stone Mountain. And to leave outside of Macon, you were doing something big. And we're like, no, I mean, you're just going 30 miles up the way to find a better opportunity. What are you talking about? It's like, no. But see, that's what you say is kind of what I emphasize. Because I made a post about it too, when we were talking about the whole, Israel-Pakistan conflict. I'm like, stop doing tourist stuff. You can do tourist stuff when you venture outside of your area, but go learn about the culture first. You got plenty of time to chill out on the resort, have drinks and stuff, but go out and do some research first. And that's what I know my kids, they probably got tired of it. That's what I did throughout their entire childhood. We drove up and down the entire East Coast in a car. Like, we drove. So they've been to everywhere. And what we did every time we stopped, like you said, we learned about different things. And I always called it life lessons. I'm like, okay, this is a life lesson for today. And that's what we have to do. And I mean, I don't even know how we even enforce that. We have to start investing back into our children and developing them and actually talk to them. So I know there's one thing about Southerners. We don't talk to kids. We talk at them. You do what I say. And after that, that's it. Do what I say, not as I do, and we don't do anything else outside of that. And your excuse to parenting is, well, I clothed you and I fed you. What else did you want from me? I did a great job. And I'm like, well, there's more to life than just doing that. I was like, because a child didn't ask to come here. You made a decision to have a child. So you clothing the child and feeding the child, those are basic responsibilities. That's what just any given thing that you're supposed to do. Right. But you're supposed to develop that child too. You're supposed to build a relationship with that child. And it's not supposed to be based on your own personal life experiences where it make a mirror image of yourself. Because I don't want a mirror image of Antonio Cortez Hicks. I don't know. We don't need no more Antonio Cortez Hickses out here. we need an Alex and we need a Jaden that's out here to be yourself. And that's one thing I always push. Don't follow me. Don't follow me in what I do. I don't want that. I've lived my life. I had my own personal experience. I want you to create your experiences for yourself and tell me what you want to do so I can help invest towards that. As long as it's something good, you ain't run the streets, I can invest towards that to make you be your best you and not be the best me of you.
Mm-hmm. But your childhood experiences, sometimes, especially being married, you will get that. Well, when I grew up, that don't make it right. Because I grew up with something different. And that's hard for a lot of my girlfriends and their husbands. And those are conversations that we have. It's hard for them to navigate because one person feels so strongly about what their mom did or what their father did. And then you may come from a household like mine. Well, daddy wasn't home. It was a single mom. So I got my experience from what my grandfather did and what my grandmother did. And so just trying to bring that together, and especially when you have bonus kids, I have my big baby is what I call her. She's 30, her experience and her upbringing was totally different. So trying to bring who you are into somebody else's life, and it's supposed to be a partnership so that you can make these kids, great and phenomenal. And it goes back to, I know we've been talking about different things in kids, but our parents and young adults, parents need help. Hoping, you talked about working 60 hours a week. Even if they are working, you have to find that time to spend an hour to 2 hours educating your kids. One thing that I've started doing is really enforcing more college kind of sort of visits. So whenever we go somewhere, just about any town that you go to, there's a community college, there's some type of school, not just focusing on the Division I schools and the ones that we see that are so popular, but just letting them know that, hey, this is a place where you can get educated, you can learn something, they understand they're going to college, we talk about it. If not going to college, how do we get them engaged early to where they're already doing dual enrollment? It's so many different things in education, or putting them in programs, like you said, that are different, exposure, just making them read a book and put down their tablet. As you was talking earlier, I was thinking about, remember, we would just read the cereal box. So you started reading everything. You would flip that box of Frosted Flakes, that was mine, over. You read the side, the back
Captain
panel.
Crunch.
You learned a lot just from the cereal box. So now we're letting them sit at the table with tablets, So some of it is guilt, it's a babysitter, sort of. And, but definitely finding apps and games to where my kids have to learn. I'm like, okay, I know you've been playing this game. Roblox is getting very interesting, but it's also getting a little bit negative, So trying to find that balance has been a struggle as we talk about technology and trying to balance it all with school.
But you still can have like the dinner, like we still do. Even my kids now, when we come down, we still sit at the dinner table together, and we watch stuff. But we watch like cooking reviews, or we watch like TYT, because I got to get my progressive news in, and we watch just about headlines and stuff. So because I always tell them, even when they was kids, I said, you got to be informed about what's going on around the world. I was like, the world don't exist around your little bubble. You need to know what the hell is going on. Whether you get involved in it or not, you still need to know what the hell is going on, because people out here got a lot rougher than you. And I tell my kids are privileged. And if they listen, I tell them all the time they're privileged.
But they are privileged, right? Because
they are.
That is what every parent's goal is, right? To do better than what we had.
Right.
And I and our kids are spoiled. Like, I will never forget my now 30-year-old. I was sending him by Greyhound. Remember when people used to ride Greyhound? And I know some
Right.
people do. And I was just like, well, I'm not going to drive you or fly you up, because he was getting on my nerves. So I sent him to my daddy in Newark. And I will never forget my little privileged child. And kids always think they don't have anything, right? They feel like they live the worst life. So put him on the bus from Atlanta. They stopped in DC, and I had already told him, you sure you don't want mom to send you with food and all that kind of stuff? No. Okay, since you think we're gonna let you live that best life. He gets to DC, calls me, and he's just like, Mom, like, I don't understand why there's not a restaurant here at the bus stop. And I'm like, because that's not what they do. And I said, well, since you have, I forgot what the next stop was, but I was like, grab a book. And my child said, and I quote, where's the Barnes and Nobles?
He's looking for the big brands.
I'm with it. I agree with your son.
No.
Where is the Barnes?
Where's the Barnes and Nobles? And I mean, I never laughed so hard. And I was thinking, this is why kids need experiences.
Library. I'm a library chick.
Yeah, because the life of it all. Because once again, mom's money is funding you. So you don't, like, when you get older, you may not have this type of money to get on a plane. So, and I purposefully sent you on the bus because I needed you to learn some things. And that was the first thing, like, no, boo, like, when they have, like, the bus stop literally has that, you might get a cold sandwich, but he was literally looking for the Barnes and Nobles. And I was like, see, this is what happens when you grow up in the suburbs, because all books come from Barnes and Nobles.
Barnes and Nobles, right?
I am a library person. We are going to the library. I am serious.
They got the Starbucks up in there.
Well, no, think about it. The church that we attend even has a cafe, and you know what, and I'm gonna say, I think it's okay. I think we try to teach our kids balance, but we have gotten to, hopefully certain statures and levels to where we feel like it's not beneath us, but we have climbed a little bit to where we feel like some of these things that we used to think were elitist, it is becoming the norm. We talk about that. I have hotel snobs. I'm a hotel snob. I just like what I like. It is what it is. And then my husband, he'll revert back. These kids need to just go to a regular hotel.
No, I don't like bed bugs.
I want to live.
And I think sometimes that's guilt from parents. But what is wrong with this is all they know. When it's all that other kids know, it's never seen as bad. Right. But when it's all that our kids know, it is seen as privilege. But I thought that's what we fought for, and we worked hard for, and we've been marching for, and we've been fighting for this freedom, is to have this privilege.
I mean, for me, I taught mine both, and I know we didn't start talking about, we're talking about kids. So I taught them mine both about the balance between the two, because I'm like, I said, I'm giving this to you because I want you to be successful in life. I want you to have opportunity. But I'm like, but don't ever look at this as a means to look down on somebody else because they don't have what you have. And so I would take them, and they would see when we go down and visit family and stuff too, that not everybody lives in the means that they live in. I'm like, so, you have these things, don't take those things for granted. Like, I don't understand these kids now, like even my kids, my youngest is yelling at him, you working, you taking school virtually and you getting bad grades. I was like, how the hell are you getting a bad grade? And you got iPads, laptops, smartphones. I'm like, I got this huge setup in my doggone house and stuff. You got all this technology that we didn't even have when we were in school that you can get information from, and you doing bad in classes. So yeah, we have to teach. I mean, it doesn't say we have to teach our kids critical thinking stuff. Like, you got to think outside the box. Don't go by what you see around them. Like, people thought it was strange that I took my ex's, her boyfriend, fiance's son with us to New York. And they come out of, you from Detroit. You went to Detroit. They're from out of Saginaw, Michigan. So Saginaw is almost like Macon. And they have the townships in there, and they live in a nice township. But still, a lot of people don't venture outside of Saginaw. A lot of people don't venture outside of Macon. Right. So I wanted my boys to see New York City. And we were, like I said, we drive everywhere. And I was like, I want to take this kid, because I love kids. Trick love the kids. I love kids. So it's like, we were going to New York, and I asked him, I said, do you mind if I take your son? Because he hadn't been, I mean, he did travel in baseball, but he never stopped anywhere to actually learn something.
Right.
And I was like, do you mind if I take your son? And he thought it was strange. I was like, man, I don't care. I was like, that's my ex. I was like, I don't care. We still have a good relationship. I'm like, this is a kid over here. This kid ain't got nothing to do with what any beef for anybody. If we don't have any, but if any beef that we might potentially have, I was like, he needs to see something outside of what he's growing up in. I'm like, we're going there. Only thing I need you to do is give me a couple of dollars to pay for your child, and I'll take him right along with me. I said, ain't but one more body in the car. It's not that big of a deal. Right. So I'm like, so do you mind if I take your kid along? And I took him along. And when I got there, I even told him, we looked around, we walked around all of Times Square, all around the city. And I was like, this is what you have to strive towards in life. I said, this is what, and I did life lessons because I always do life lessons. I said, when you look at places like this, you have to understand these places are attainable, but it's all about how you apply yourself. Don't think that you're stuck where you are because of the situation, circumstance that you're in. You can achieve greater things, and this is what you can get to if you work towards those things.
I think, first of all, you have a whole other conversation about taking your ex's boyfriend, child. That's a whole conversation. That's a whole other skill level right there.
Yeah, people don't understand it.
You got to be able to have a village, because
right.
I told someone that the other day, her son married someone who already had a child. So when you start bringing in these blended families, and she wanted to say, well, technically he is not my grandson, and I am just 1,000 in real. Let me tell you what I said. Technically, when he go rob the bank, he gonna be with his brother. So technically, you might want to invest a little bit more into this kid as well, because they're gonna be linked together. She said, send me that information. Okay. Like, it's a partnership. So when you start looking at things from that perspective of not necessarily family members and who's blood relatives, it's about who are you connected to, who are you building a community with. And that takes us back to a village and a community, and who's in your community. And if those is, like you said, that's the exes, this who she with. Hey, we was raised that everybody going.
Right.
Everybody on the family, everybody's going on the field trip.
Right.
And to Sunday school, and and so I just think we've just gotten away from, like you're saying, community involvement, family, what's considered family. I went to an event yesterday and we talked about culture. And it was more about, now we've created our own virtual Zooms with people. And you're not connecting with people that you work with. You're not showing up in the workplace. So there's no different type of learning that you used to get from other people. Like, let's say, hey, I might have traveled to, I don't know, somewhere, Croatia or something. And then your coworker is like, oh, I went to Spain. So now you're getting that intrinsic activity without even thinking about it. We've kind of lost that, So it's like we're almost navigating by ourselves, and people are becoming more alone and secluded. And so that's why those 3-minute reads are important, those long reads. People are still seeking to belong and engage and trying to find that in this new territory, in this different space that we're navigating in. So we're all trying to learn. It's been 15 months of COVID, and the world is just a different place. So I like what you're saying, Ms. Gray, about getting back.
The 15 months hasn't changed my life much. The 15 months, I'm saying the 15 months has not changed my life much, but I do, because I'm a homebody. I like, when I do go out intentionally and purposefully, and I like my quiet. And the fact that I didn't stop working anyway during the pandemic, but what I do see is that as a conflict interventionist, what was hard for people in terms of critically thinking was that they actually had to start thinking. And it was everything from, and you can see it by the things that people were doing, like what became trendy. Oh, like, I don't want to live in a small box anymore. I want a bigger house, or I don't want a bigger house. Or, it was really interesting to see how many people lived, but they were living in a space where they hated their own spaces. Like, how do you go home every day to a space that you hate? Like, that doesn't need spiritual to sit well with me. Things like, how do I cook? How do I make stuff? So I see the positive side of it, because people really had to slow down, people had to stop and reflect. And I also see the challenges of it, and as a resolution, as a conflict resolutionist, because whatever pent up issues you had and you don't have the skills to deal with those, it's showing up. We did not deliver alcohol or made that a law because of good intentions. It was done so that way, if you were an alcoholic, that we know you could not go detox somewhere. And yes, did it help businesses? Yes, it did. But the fact remains that there were people who needed this just to sustain themselves. That's a problem. We see that people are coming out of this pandemic. It is not a fluke that people are out here shooting up the place. It's not. And I'm telling people 3 to 5 years from now, when the academics start studying this, when the social scientists like me start studying this, all they're going to say is that the pandemic, people had pent up issues. They got to brood over why they were upset with somebody because they don't have the skills to understand, like, this is really not an issue, or, you know, it's not majority. So all of these things are coming out now. Every time I see a shooting of a young Black male, or somebody was shot, or, you know, people have literally have been pent up dealing with the, I can't stand so-and-so. Like, and this is how they're choosing to come out of the pandemic is, oh, I'm gonna take someone out. Like, there's an opportunity. And it's like, okay, wait, where's the skill in that? Like, that was your skill? Like, literally, that was your skill. And I see it because, you know, going back to the kids, because there is a distinct tie between our childhood and our adulthood, because a lot of it just carry us along. We just carry a lot of stuff along with us without thinking. Or we were taught this way, that's how it is. And some of us were taught that harm was okay. Some of us were taught that, right? That's, our parents spanked us, our parents beat us, whatever the scale is on that, or they saw violence in their home and it was normalized. And then you have other people that are just like, no, that's not normal. Like, I'd rather sit and talk it out. It seems like the sit and talk it out people, that's a very small portion, because people don't know how to talk it out. But I also recall that when we, after Columbine, we went to zero tolerance. And zero tolerance literally meant you could no longer teach children the skills on how to deal with conflict between their peers. So it became a measure of just go tell the teacher. Well, you don't, what have they learned to go tell the teacher? Or my favorite, I remember when I moved to Georgia and my oldest was in middle school. I think he was in 7th grade. And between the 7th grader and my daughter, I'll never forget this training. The conflict resolution training was fall to the ground. Like, if a kid came and hit you, you weren't to fight back. No fighting back. It was, you fall to the ground, curl up in a ball and cover your head like this, and wait for someone on the floor and wait for the teacher to intervene. And I'm thinking, well, what does that solve? Like, what skills just teach these children? And then you put the laws on the book, or the policies on the book, that say that if you fight back in defense of yourself, you're going to get suspended. So think about how many children didn't fight back because they were more in fear of the suspension than protecting themselves. And so I look at that, and I look at adults and I go, oh, I see. I see how you were taught. I see how you're still kind of moving along this path, because I see it when you make decisions, because a lot of people back off, don't want to speak up, because they're so fearful of consequences. And a lot of these consequences aren't real, or they're consequences coming from other people that have no power over you. And that's the kind of stuff that I see in this space, whether it's politically and everything. And I tell people all the time, everything is political. I don't care what you say about it. Everything is political, everything. Even the simplest of things, what type of water to buy, is political, because someone's attached to something, some over here, and we're protesting Coke, so I can't buy Dasani water. I mean, it's everything, right? So as we're collecting information, or trying to process whatever information it is that we have, it is there is just a true lack. And as adults, it's harder to get it, because, you know, it's like teaching a dog, new tricks. It's hard. it's hard to get them back into that space.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just gonna keep saying this. We need a renaissance. We need a renaissance. And I'm not too sure if people know what the hell the renaissance is, but we need a renaissance because we need to go, how do we upgrade ourselves? Mentally, physically, spiritually, with the arts or whatever. And I see pockets of it. I do see pockets of it. And it gives me hope. But they're not the ones that are getting the attention that's needed. You know, I had a young lady I was speaking to the other day, and she said her girlfriend told her, even though she was hosting an event, and she was just like, oh, I'm not going to, her girlfriend told her, you can't come to the event unless you have 20-inch bundles in your hair and you throw makeup on. And and I'm like, that, even though the girl set up the event, and she was like, you can't come because she didn't look the right way. Right?
Ooh.
Whatever this, I mean, she had to have a weave in, and I'm like, this is what we have as standards. Like, this is, we're in trouble. Our babies are in trouble. And that's not all of them. There's a portion. But think about that. Like, literally, you can't come because you don't have a weave or you don't look a certain way. And to me, that's all privilege.
Yes, it is. So as we wind down the show, I hope we put a finger on how to problem solve and some critical thinking. I think some people just being lazy. I'm just gonna be honest about it. I like to keep it real on the show. I think, you know, I mean, because, you know, this is, and it's, I'm not trying to talk bad about anybody. I say lazy because you know what you know, and the things that you don't know, you don't seek to understand it because you're stuck in this whole drone mentality state where you're used to doing one thing over and over again. And to think outside of that is something that you're not used to. So you rather conform to what you're used to as opposed to doing something totally different. Which is why I was saying, like, all of us that come from small towns, those that live in small towns stay in small towns because they never thought that there's something greater outside of that. And to think something is greater outside of that, they think it's beyond their own means, which that's a problem too, because now you're measuring your own self-worth based upon things that's been forced upon you. So as we move out of that, I want to thank Ms. Kiddada for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
And, you know, if people want to get in touch with you, because she is a very knowledgeable person, she's the who's who, the sister who's who that's out there. How can they do that? How can they get in touch with you if they want to, or find out more about who you are and what you're doing?
Oh, well, since I already confessed, I really don't do social media that much. You want me to give you my phone number? Because people call me all the time.
No, do not.
No.
Not that. Now, you know, I'm security now. We don't do phone. We don't do phone numbers.
How can someone email you if they want to get your services?
Yeah, if you want to email me, so it's really simple. It's KG, the number 2, and the word educate@gmail.com. Now,
one thing I do ask before I hand it off to Tamika, and I didn't prep you for this because I like to just do it on fire from the hips, is that we're surrounded by so much chaos in this world, especially on social media. And you know that too, especially on social media. I like to leave people with a positive thought and to bless back over the community. So if you can say something positive, give a positive message to those out there. Miss Mom, Miss Caribbean lady, because I know you're from the Caribbean. You know, y'all got a lot of nice things to say.
A lot of nice things to say.
Yes.
Well, I think what I like to leave with in positivity, I want to say, stand in your own space. And the way that you stand in your own space is you have to be reflective about who you are. That means the good things, the bad things, the negative things, and you need to own all of that, because when you own all of you, there's nothing anyone can take from you. Mm-hmm. That's what I think, I wish, and I hope for this world, for every individual in this space. So stand in your own space, because you are fabulous. You can glow up. I promise you, the sun shines so bright that there's so many rays of the sun. You're not taking anything from anybody else. So that's what stand in your own space. Stand in your own space.
Thank you. And my Miss Tamika Day.
Well, I am Tamika Day, and I have to be on social media, so You can find me at I am Tamika Day as well as justtamikaday.com to get more information about me and my services. And I just want to say happiness is an attitude. We either make ourselves miserable or happy and strong. The amount of work is the same. So choose where you spend your time and what you decide to put your energy into so that you can make it the best you possible.
Thank you. And I am Antonio Hicks. Oh, you're going to, I'm sorry. You got to do your thing.
Hashtag.
My bad. I cut you off your hashtag. Go ahead.
Hashtag success is my superpower.
All right. I love it.
Yeah, I told you I got to get one too. I always say take, you did 3 L's. I saw somebody stole it away from me, but I ain't going to call them out. Yeah. Ooh.
Repeat. Don't
Tamika.
Tamika. The show. Wrap it up.
So I am Antonio Hicks, aka Mr. Escaping the Matrix. I welcome all these lovely ladies onto this show. I always welcome on this show. I may invite Miss Kiddada back on again. I probably will because she's a very informed woman and she works in IT. So I love to see diversity in IT because even in all my fields, every department I've worked in and the company I'm at, I've only seen a handful of women. So I encourage more women to get in IT. And when I know people operate in that space, even though she might not do it now. But even though I encourage people to get into it because we need more thinking because like I always say, being a nerd, women used to be the programmers. They were the original programmers before these dudes took over. If you don't know that, go research that. Matter of fact, go Google it. Have Google, like I said before, read to you and teach you something new. So it started off with women doing data analysts and everything before it got handed over to the men because the men thought it was beneath them. But I am Mr. Antonio Hicks again, Mr. Escaping the Matrix. Like I always say, take your daily L's. You'll live, love, and laugh. And one thing I want to say, somebody posted today. So if you don't follow me on social media, follow me on social media. But you can find me on ptgtv.online. All of my stuff is out there now. Even my Twitch channel and everything is all on the website now. So you can find me there. And one of the things I posted today was by recognizing the divine in others, I acknowledge the divine in myself. And that's one thing I believe in wholeheartedly. You have to look at what people have, the gifts that they have, and lift them up because as you lift them up, you're lifting yourself up. And one thing I do always encourage upon people, look outside of your box and find mentors and those who are doing something better than you so you can learn from them. And people are always willing to give out information if you give them an opportunity to do so. And you show them that you're willing to learn from them and apply it towards your own life for the betterment of yourself. So continue to seek out knowledge, stop with these 3-minute reads. And if you don't have time to read, listen to an audiobook, listen to podcasts. This is not just a plug of my podcast, but listen to podcasts where information is readily available to you along with YouTube. Subscribe to YouTube. It's only $9.99 a month. And you can turn the whole video off and just listen to an audio recording as well, too. So you can find me again on ptgtv.online. Thank you all for tuning in. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, if you can, go out there and like it. Leave a comment because we do welcome comments about how we're doing on the show. Love you guys. Happy podcasting.